the sovereign will of people who've been oppressed consistently under chattel enslavement, oppressed under colonialism, oppressed under apartheid, and now seek liberation. No one can tell you not to be free. No one can tell you what words to use for freedom. I want to leave you with this anecdote. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was called a terrorist for daring to say the system that made his people subhuman was unacceptable. What will your generation say? Will you worry about the names that you are called, or will you look at the higher price, which is there is no liberation that happens by permission. There needs to be more than outrage, a commitment to implement what comes out of Johannesburg. I stand on existing protocols. I do realize it's late in the day. Friends, the G20 social has focused in South Africa on fundamental questions that pertain to several things, but let me highlight three since time is of the essence. The first one is that global development, national development, Pan-African development, in order to be truly transformative, has to center people, their priorities, their issues, and their aspirations. And the one thing that had been missing from African development speak is that a lot of time was invested in poverty fixing, in misery fixing, in addressing the consequences of behaviors of others, omissions perhaps on our part, whether those behaviors were what caused humanitarian, climate and other crises, or things that resulted in the cost of capital for us to be able to transform the state of our economies to be as high as the panel said. We also focused on matters of debt and financial sustainability. Note I'm not using the term debt sustainability. The fundamental issue, as we heard from earlier panels, is that the entire global system was designed to keep the continent and much of the developing world in a condition of servitude, where any attempt to industrialize, any attempt to transform our economies to achieve any matter of economic or financial sovereignty would actually be scampered by the fact that if you rely on external sources, the cost of that money will be too high. If you try to leverage domestic sources, in some instances, it was controlled. The second thing that was made clear by the G20 or the social is the fact that we ought to have three conversations at the same time. The first conversation is addressing global inequity and inequality, the skewed or rigged system that was described on the stage. The second is that we have to leverage non-traditional, including our own resources, in order to develop. What are those sources? Number one, UNDP just released a report that says the township economy in South Africa is about 1 trillion rands. We know remittances are way larger than foreign direct investment or ODA coming to this continent. Number three, we know that people in their own solidarity economies are generating more value, creating more sustainability. Other women bailing out the state through care work or care economies, or informal, so-called informal sectors that are producing value. So what the social, G20 social, has placed on the table is that Africa needs to create the frameworks that enable it to create wealth in order to enhance its own ability to negotiate better deals, whether in critical minerals or better cost of finance. And that includes things such as the Sovereign Wealth Fund. We are in solidarity as the Open Society Foundations of the idea of achieving financial and economic sovereignty through the creation of wealth infrastructure that is contributed to by Africans and African resources. And we believe that the steps taken by bankers taken by other African high net worth individuals and ordinary Africans to start contributing to kitties that will be applied in order to de-risk investment in crucial sectors and to address humanitarian and other factors, as well as to create intergenerational wealth and possibilities of transformation is key. Lastly, we want to echo the voices that we've heard across the G20 social, which are that the global economic system, the global financial architecture that has created ultra wealth without accountability or responsibility needs to be revisited. We believe that taxing the uber wealthy or the super wealthy, we believe that building more inclusive financial system and also building social infrastructure that enables people, healthcare workers, that enables caregivers, that enables ordinary citizens to actually thrive is key. Ultimately, Africa will not develop simply from getting more capital. Number one resource is Africa's human resources, that the ability to invest in skills. Otherwise, what will happen is that Africa will talk about critical minerals. But if you look at our universities, our technicons, research institutions, there's not enough investment in building the skills that will leverage and power future economies. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. So we stand in solidarity with what South Africa's presidency of the G20 has done. Place critical agenda on for debate by the whole world and seek to mobilize the rest of the global majority world into a consensus, into a conversation. It is not so much about those who were not here. It is about those who have been here. The world is run by those that participate. And it's high time we realized as Africa that the greatest achievement is to hear South Africa and the African Union speak with one voice. What South Africa has placed on the agenda of G20 reflects and mirrors what Agenda 2063 had put as legacy programs. If it ends here, then we would have failed. This conversation must go beyond Johannesburg, go beyond Washington. This conversation must be a conversation about the people of the world taking back their power to reshape the future of world economies, the future of world governance, the future of multilateralism and global cooperation. We stand in solidarity with G20 Social, and we remain committed to support the sovereign will of people who've been oppressed consistently under chattel enslavement, oppressed under colonialism, oppressed under apartheid, and now seek liberation. No one can tell you not to be free. No one can tell you what words to use for freedom. I want to leave you with this anecdote. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was called a terrorist for daring to say the system that made his people subhuman was unacceptable. What will your generation say? Will you worry about the names that you are called, or will you look at the higher price, which is there is no liberation that happens by permission. There needs to be more than outrage, a commitment to implement what comes out of Johannesburg. Thank you.
Very much. I thought I was graduating today with my PhD. Excellency, let me start by recognizing the Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, the Mayor, the UN Assistant Secretary General and Director of UNDP Regional Bureau, the G20 co-convener, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegate representatives of civil society across the globe, and also all civil society organization leaders, including the ECOSOC presiding officer, brothers and sisters. It is with profound honor and deep sense of historic responsibility that I stand before you today, speaking on behalf of the 1.8 billion Africans, both from the continent and the diaspora. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you warm greetings from the Economic, Social, and Cultural Council of the African Union, the voice of the African civil society, within the continental governance architecture, representing the aspirations, struggles, and triumphs of grassroots communities across our 55 member states and the diaspora. We are gathered here today at a historic juncture of global governance, which we are about to shape together through the G20 Social Summit Declaration that will emerge from our gathering here. Let me begin by expressing my profound gratitude to the Republic of South Africa for its visionary leadership in hosting this G20 Social Summit under the transformative theme of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Africa's G20 Summit is a statement to the world that we are no longer content to be observers of our own destiny, but we are builders of a new global order. Excellencies, let us speak candidly. The current architecture of global governance was constructed in an era where Africa was left aside. The institutions that purport to govern our collective future were designed in the aftermath of conflicts we did not initiate, in rooms where our voice were absent, and according to principles that often contradict our lived realities. This results into a world order that perpetuates rather than rectify historical injustice. Consider the stark realities below. Africa holds 30% of the world's mineral reserves, possesses 60% of the world's arable land, and is home to the youngest population on earth, and yet we remain on the periphery of global economic decision-making. Our continent contributes less than 4% of global greenhouse emissions, yet we bear catastrophic brunt of climate change. We possess the resources that power the digital revolution, yet we are positioned as consumers rather than creators of technological future. This is not a call for charity or concession. This is a demand for justice. This is an insistence that the global order must be reimagined, reconstructed, and rebuilt on foundation of genuine equity, mutual respect, and shared prosperity. The old paradigm of development assistance predicated on dependency must give way to partnership rooted in dignity and reciprocity. The time has come of Africa transition from being a subject of global policy to being the principal author of it. For far too long, decisions affecting our people, our resources, and our futures have been made in capitals far from our shores. For far too long, we have been reactive and responding to crises manufactured elsewhere, adapting to frameworks imposed upon us, accepting narratives written about us rather than by us. Through Agenda 2063, the African Continental Free Trade Area, and the forthcoming decade of African reparation, we are charting a course towards self-determination. Distinguished participants, if this new world order is to be legitimized, it must be built with the active participation of civil society. Government alone cannot engineer the transformation. We seek the private sector. We know you cannot alone guarantee equity. International institutions alone cannot guarantee accountability. It is the civil society that provides the moral compass and the grassroots legitimacy essential for sustainable change. ECOSOC stands as the institutional bridge between the aspiration of the grassroots communities and the policy corridors of the African Union. In the context of this G20 Social Summit, civil society brings what formal institutions often lack: proximity to reality. When we discuss food security, we bring the perspective of smallholder farmers facing drought. When we debate digital transformation, we amplify the concerns of communities lacking basic connectivity. When we deliberate on social protection, we carry the stories of informal workers without safety net. Our participation is not a courtesy, it is a necessity. As we embark on these 3 days of deliberation, I call upon all stakeholders present to approach this summit with the seriousness it deserves. It is our earnest appeal to the G20 member states. We need to recognize that Africa's participation through South Africa is not a favor extended to us, but a necessity for your own legitimacy. A G20 without meaningful African engagement is incomplete and ultimately ineffective. Our challenges are global challenges. Our solutions are global solutions. Excellencies, distinguished guests, we stand at a crossroad. One path leads to the perpetuation of an inequitable global order where Africa remains marginalized despite its centrality to global prosperity. The other path leads to a restructured international system where solidarity is not a rhetoric, but a practice, where equality is not aspiration, but reality, where sustainability is not a slogan, but a standard. Let this G20 Social Summit be remembered for its impact on the ordinary African citizen. Yours in solidarity, I thank you.
Thank you, Africa, Mama Africa.